Every clock in the shop stopped at exactly 3:17 a.m. Every single one. On the same night my father disappeared. My father, William Cross, was the finest clockmaker in all of London. His small shop on Whitmore Lane had been there for 40 years. People came from across England to have their timepieces repaired by him. He had a gift, not just for fixing clocks, but for understanding them. He always said that every clock has a heartbeat, and when that heartbeat stops, something has gone terribly wrong. On the morning of November the 3rd, I arrived at his shop to find the front door wide open, every clock frozen at 3:17, and my father completely gone. The police found nothing suspicious, no signs of struggle, no forced entry. His coat was still hanging by the door. His half-finished cup of tea sat cold on the workbench. It was as if he had simply vanished mid-breath. I refused to accept that. I stayed in the shop for 3 days straight, searching every corner, every drawer, every hidden shelf. On the 4th night, I found something behind the oldest grandfather clock in the shop. A door, small, wooden, painted the same color as the wall. A door I had never seen in 30 years of visiting that shop. The door opened into a narrow room, no bigger than a wardrobe. Inside was a wooden desk covered in papers, notebooks, and hand-drawn diagrams. The walls were lined with clocks, but these were unlike anything in the shop. They had no numbers, no hands, just strange symbols carved into their faces. And in the center of the desk, a leather journal, thick, weathered, filled with my father's handwriting. The very first page read, "If you are reading this, then they have finally come for me. Do not look for me in this world." I read through the night. My father's journal spoke of things I could barely understand. He wrote about a group of people, he called them the Keepers, who had contacted him 10 years ago. They had given him a clock, a very specific clock. One that did not measure hours or minutes, but something else entirely. Something he described only as the space between moments. He wrote that he had been repairing and maintaining this clock in secret for a decade, and that if it ever stopped, the consequences would be catastrophic. The last entry in the journal was dated the night he disappeared. It said only 4 words: "The clock has stopped." The next morning, a woman knocked on the shop door. Tall, dressed in black, with pale grey eyes that seemed to look straight through me. She introduced herself simply as Margaret. She said she knew my father. She said she had been sent to find the clock. When I told her I had no idea what clock she meant, she looked at me very carefully and said, "Yes, you do. You felt it when you walked into that hidden room. Every person with the gift can feel it. It pulls at something deep inside you, like a heartbeat that isn't yours." She was right. I had felt it. A low, steady pull in the center of my chest, like something calling. Margaret led me back to the hidden room. In the corner, behind a false panel I had missed entirely, was the clock my father had written about. It was small, no larger than a shoebox. Black metal casing, strange symbols covering every surface, and it was completely silent, dead. She whispered that without this clock running, time in certain places would begin to fracture. Small at first, moments repeating, memories bleeding into the present, people becoming lost between seconds. Then she turned to me with an expression I will never forget. "Your father didn't disappear," she said quietly. "He stepped inside one of those fractures to try to hold it together from within, and he needs someone on the outside to restart the clock, someone with his blood." She placed the clock in my hands. It was warm, and then it ticked. Once. Margaret told me what I had to do. Restarting the clock would not be simple. My father had left instructions, hidden inside the journal in a code only family would recognize. Childhood memories, dates, the name of our old dog, the street where I learned to ride a bicycle. He had protected it with the only lock no stranger could ever break, a life only I had lived alongside him. I worked through the code for hours. Margaret stood silently by the door, watching the street. Outside, strange things had begun happening on Whitmore Lane. A woman walking past stopped mid-step and stood completely still. A pigeon froze in the air. A child's laughter echoed from a direction where no child stood. I found the final sequence just before midnight. 7 symbols entered in a precise order using a small dial on the clock's base that my father had described in his journal as the winding key of forgotten mornings. The moment I entered the last symbol, the clock shuddered in my hands. Then it began to tick, steady, deep, resonant, like a heartbeat recovering after a long silence. The glow spread from the clock outward, through the room, through the walls. Outside, I heard the woman on the street resume her walking. The pigeon continued its flight. The child's laughter faded properly into the distance, and somewhere, in the space between one tick and the next, I heard my father's voice. Just 2 words, quiet as breath. "Thank you, son." Margaret left before sunrise without another word. The clock sits on my father's workbench now, ticking steadily. His coat is still by the door. His tea has never been replaced. I open the shop every morning at 8, just as he did. I repair timepieces. I listen to their heartbeats. And every night before I lock up, I check the clock, the real one, to make sure it is still running. Sometimes when the shop is quiet and the last customer has gone, I stand in the hidden room and I listen. And sometimes, just sometimes, I hear something in the rhythm, a pattern, a message, as if someone on the other side is learning, slowly and carefully, how to speak in ticks. Time does not simply pass, it is kept, and somewhere, someone is always keeping it.
Fiction disclaimer. All characters, places, and events in this story are entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes only. Cliffside Stories.